Welcome to another episode of the Get to Know Your Local Historical Society video project. Join us to explore the collections, services, and history of the Wildwood Historical Society.
So we were founded in 1963 by Wildwood volunteer firefighter George F. Boyer, who we are now named after. He founded the Wildwood Historical Society originally in a small room in City Hall. We've now expanded to occupy an entire building at 3907 Pacific Avenue in the heart of Wildwood. We are in one of the oldest funeral homes on the island that was once operated by the Ingersoll family. They were here for around 60 some years until we took over the building in the 90s. We've been here since then, growing our collection. We now have 5 rooms and an extremely extensive photograph collection. We have tons of memorabilia, many different artifacts, bunch of different things. Pretty much everything Wildwood you can imagine has found its way here. And we are also a nonprofit organization entirely run off of donations and government grants. We are run by, right now, a board of directors. The museum itself is maintained by a variety of volunteers as well as 2 staff members. We are a summer town, so all of our business really happens in the 4 months of the summer. We really just are here to get people in touch with the history of the Wildwoods, get them to remember the amazing things that have happened here, try to work to preserve a lot of the stuff that is being ripped down at this time, because a lot of the historic homes and historic structures in Wildwood are currently under danger. But we're always open Memorial Day, ready to welcome all of our guests, and we have a lot of people that come every summer. At all times, we always have in our 5 rooms, our main room houses most of our older Wildwood history. So thinking about the late 19th century when the island was first developed and founded. Then we also have a school room, which houses our entire school collection. Inside of there, we have class photos spanning 100 years, yearbooks, playbills, old desks from schoolhouses, a schoolyard bell from St. Anne's School. And we also have a room which houses our police, fire, and lifeguard collection. Inside of there, we have different photos of classes of lifeguards as well as police inductions. We have photographs of major fires on the island, different gear used by these people. And we also have a military collection, which is right off of that, which contains some military outfits as well as medals and flags that have been donated by families. We also have a room which houses a lot of our restaurant history here in the Wildwoods. We received a large collection of material from the restaurant Zabers, and we have that in one of our rooms as well as some other restaurant memorabilia. We have a reoccurring exhibit on transportation, railroad history, and trolleys and tram cars are super popular down here. So we have a collection of photographs, posters, which show train times as well as the cost of tickets back in the 20th century. We're currently in the process of sort of altering what the focus of one of our rooms is going to be. Right now it has stuff like a vintage refrigerator, a vintage stove, an old cash register that was used at a motel. We have a vintage key stand from one of the motels, from memorable properties on the island. And those are some of our most major standing exhibits that we have here. Print resources are pretty extensive here. We have a photograph collection, like I said before, that is available to the public. Unfortunately, it is only available physically here in the museum, so you would have to come in to view it. We have thousands of photographs on pretty much every topic that you can conceive of Wildwood. So we have all of our photographs that are available to the public. Included in that collection is also a collection of postcards. A lot of those postcards include messages on the back, so really when people are coming in to do genealogical work, a lot of them are looking to find photographic records of homes or businesses. So that can all be found in our collection over there. We also have a very extensive collection of yearbooks and newspapers. Our yearbooks and newspapers are spanning pretty much over 100 years. We also have several town directories from the 20th century that can tell us exactly who owned a property in what year, and what the property exactly was used used for, which are really helpful. Those directories also include lists of businesses and lists of motels, which are really important for genealogical work here in the Wildwood. We also have a variety of military records and obituaries. We have a pretty extensive collection of family files that are housed here in the museum. They're on the major families of Wildwood, and pretty much anyone who was involved in the early founding of an island itself. We have files on them. We also have files on a lot of the families who are involved in major businesses on the island. So think of major businesses on the boardwalk as well as major restaurants. And we also have a large collection of phone books, which are also really, really helpful for genealogical work. And we get people who came here in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s. In every decade, I'm going to use a slightly different set of resources. My first stop is always the town directories that we have. They're called Polk's town directories. We have them for years in the 1910s, the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So those are really my first stop whenever someone comes in and asks me about where they came to stay. I can go street by street and it lists out every single address as it was appearing on the street, which is so, so helpful. It also gives a comprehensive list of every motel, furnished room, hotel that existed on the island at the time. We also have a ton of tourism pamphlets. So the Hotel Motel Association printed these pamphlets that had advertisements for every single motel on the island that usually included some pictures. They're all alphabetized. So I have some people go through there and they can find exactly where they stayed there. We also have a book that was written by a volunteer here. The book has a detailed map of most motels that have ever existed on the island, and it tells you which ones have been demolished, which ones have been altered, which ones have stayed the same. And those are really helpful for people who are kind of looking for a brief history on where they stayed. We also have a specific postcard collection that is all motels. Sometimes a lot of the photographs that we have are street shots or they're from weird angles and we're getting like a lot of pool or a lot of parking lot, and people don't really want that. They kind of want like the glamour shot with the neon in it, and postcards are perfect for that. The phone books are also really good for tracing family summer visitation stuff because so many of the businesses on the boardwalk have changed hands multiple times since those visitors were here, even in the 80s. And the street itself looks different. Things have been so altered in the past 20 years. So having those phone books here, it's really easy to kind of just go through and find an address for someone, find the name of a business and get them exactly where it was so they can go on the boardwalk and find where they worked back in 1983. I had someone come in and do that last week. We have yearbooks, newspapers, property scans, and obituaries, which have all been digitized. If you do want to access those records, then we ask that people email in and we can connect you with those resources. We also have property scans, which are all scanned into our computer. Those scans are depending on which of the Wildwoods you're in. So Wildwood Crest, Wildwood Proper, or North Wildwood. And we have photos from the 60s, 80s, or early 2000s of every house listed by address, house and motel and property really, and you can provide us an address. We can find the photograph for you. We have a archive of all of our newsletters from as long as they've existed really on our website that the public can access. Our newsletters are developed by some of our board members as well as some volunteers. They contain different stories, personal stories and historical stories on the Wildwoods as well as historic photographs. And they also contain some of our membership files, so they just contain some old shots as well as stories related with old historic photos that a lot of visitors really appreciate. We also have an account on every social media platform. We post historic photographs as well as short commentaries on the photographs. We have a fairly large community online that comments and gets involved in sort of sharing their little tidbits of Wildwood history. And it's been really great in formulating a community for the Historical Society that isn't so much within the physical space. So really, there are two ways that you can go about coming in and utilizing our collection. The first way would be to call in advance and set up an appointment with one of our managers or volunteers. It's most helpful if you give in advance, call and let us know what exactly it is that you're looking for. We can let you know then if we have what you are looking for. We can also pull out some resources to prepare for your arrivals. So setting up an appointment would really be the best way to get hands-on access and be able to do research on demand. If you're looking to just perform more casual types of research, you can come in really any day that we're open. We can really handle any sort of casual inquests. But if you're looking to do more formalized types of research, I would say that setting up an appointment would definitely be the best. And the best way to do that would be by emailing. One of my favorites that I think is really interesting and that has a sort of weird unknown history is a 1909 racing trophy that we have from the Wildwoods. The trophy was awarded to Len Zengler, who won the Independence Day race back in 1909. And the trophy was actually awarded to him by the Baker brothers, who were the founders of the island. He was racing using like a 60 horsepower Chadwick 6, which was a brand new cutting edge car, and he was racing on what is now called Central Avenue in Wildwood, which was then called the Old Speedway. It was about 80 feet wide and 2 miles long, and it was used for racing. And then another thing that we have, which is probably my favorite thing in this museum, is a 1909 aerial shot of Wildwood, which was actually taken using a system of kites and wires that was developed by a man named George Lawrence. And he used this same system to take a really famous photograph of the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco. But basically, he had a system of kites and wires that took a 50-pound camera up 800 feet into the air, and then he used a hand crank telephone magneto, which is basically a hand cranked electrical generator to snap the shutter. And it took this amazing photograph that takes up the entire wall of one of our rooms of the Wildwoods. And you can see how the shoreline has changed, how the positioning of the boardwalk has changed, how streets have been added and altered, and how many trees were taken down and how many houses have been put up, and the houses that are still there from 100 years ago even. And so we have 2 Keystone Cops from a really famous ride back in the 60s. This ride had people sit in these sort of funky old style cars, and you crashed into different rooms with all black light and neon everywhere, and all these kooky little characters were dancing around. And it was one of like a very famous dark kids rides, and it remained in operation on what was called Hunt's Pier here in the Wildwoods until its closure in 88. And so those are 2 really cool boardwalk artifacts we have, which are part of our boardwalk room. We also have a really cool 96-year-old church bell in here. It's pretty massive, and it was first made in 1928 in Baltimore, and then it was eventually housed in the Hollywood Methodist Episcopal Church at 4200 Pacific. Eventually, that church was closed, and inside of it, of course, was a nightclub. And once that nightclub opened, it was called the Quo Vadis and then the Nile nightclub. And they kept the bell in there the entire time of operation in these nightclubs. And then eventually, the building was set to be demolished. And right before the demolition, thieves attempted to break into the building and steal the bell. They were trying to cut it off of its stand and actually slice the bell, creating a slit in it. And this slit is still in the bell today. And the bell was then purchased from the developer of the property and donated to us, where it is housed now with its break and all. And those are some of our really cool things that I think kind of share an insight into Wildwood that most people don't remember and most people don't reflect on so much. The best way to get into contact with us would either be by phone or email. Our email is wildwoodhistoricalsociety@hotmail.com, and our phone number is 609-523-0277. We're open 10 to 3 p.m. every day except for Sunday from Memorial Day to Labor Day. After that, we have more limited hours Thursday to Saturday from 10 to 3, and then we close for the season around Halloween. We are located at 3907 Pacific Avenue in the heart of Wildwood, and we are accessible to all, and we have free admission. So we appreciate any and all guests, and we're always open to researchers and people interested in Wildwood history and pretty much anyone who just wants to learn.